Operation Opera, the Osirak strike June 7, 1980, won 7 hours local 80 nautical miles southeast of Baghdad, the 816, as cross into Iraqi airspace at 360 feet above the desert floor, and Captain Ilan Ramon knows the fuel math has no margin left. They've flown 600 miles from Etzion Air Base in the Sinai, hugging Jordan's southern border in radio silence, riding the radar shadow of wadis and ridgelines, and every minute at this altitude burns gas the mission plan assumed they wouldn't need. The Pratt Whitney phone 100 engine behind him gulps fuel in the thick air near the surface. His totalizer reads 200 pounds, enough for 12 minutes of combat maneuvering, the weapon run, and the climb back to cruise altitude for the long flight home. If everything goes perfectly, it won't. Ramon is number 8 Tay, lend Charlie in the second flight of 4. Ahead, spread across 2 miles of sky, 7 more fighting Falcons hug the earth, each carrying 2 Mark 80, 4 200-pound bombs fitted with delayed action fuses. 16,000 pounds of high explosive carried 1 miles round trip with one purpose: destroy the Osirak nuclear reactor 1 mile south of Baghdad before it goes hot. Intelligence says the French technicians left the site yesterday. Intelligence says the reactor core will be loaded with enriched uranium next week. Intelligence says this is the last clean shot Israel will ever have, but intelligence has been wrong before. Ramon's radar warning receiver is silent. The Iraqi air defense networks, A-2 and S-3 missile batteries ringing Baghdad, overlapping radar coverage from the capital south to 2. Waith hasn't seen them yet. The formation has threaded the needle between 2 radar sites, staying below the surveillance horizon, using terrain masking and the simple geometry of radar detection. A beam projected from mounted antenna can't see through hills, and at 360 feet above ground, level in rolling desert, the horizon is only 3 nautical miles away. The Iraqi radars are looking for high-altitude formations, bombers climbing out of Iran or Turkey, not a fast low-level package punching straight up the Euphrates corridor at 480 knots. But they are about to climb, and when they do, every radar in southern Iraq will see them. Tuwaitha Nuclear Research Center, 1,730, 4 hours local, the reactor dome rises 60 feet above the complex, a gray concrete sphere reflecting late afternoon sun. Inside the control building, 4 French technicians are still on site. Philippe Delacroix, a radiation safety officer from Saleh, stands in the observation corridor watching the empty reactor vessel below. His government told him the Israelis wouldn't strike, too risky, politically impossible. His gut told him otherwise, which is why he's been pushing his team to leave for 3 days. 2 men flew out yesterday, 2 remain packing calibration instruments in the control room. A half-mile north at the Tuwaitha Air Defense Command Post, Lieutenant Fadhil Raji stares at the Soviet-made 15 flat-face radar display. The scope shows the civil air corridor northwest to Amman, 2 airliners at 30 feet, and clutter returns from the Euphrates Valley. No hostile tracks, he's bored. The war with Iran is 300 miles east, nothing ever happens here. The S-3 Goa battery protecting the reactor complex has been on stand by status for 6 hours, crews rotating for evening prayers and dinner. The system requires 4 minutes from alert to full tracking engage, Menpetary commander's orders. Fuel and maintenance costs are too high to keep the missiles hot all day. Fadhil's headset crackles. Southern sector reports possible low-altitude contacts, intermittent, possibly helicopters or small aircraft. Bearing 190, range unknown, lost in ground clutter. He marks the call in the log and goes back to watching the airliners. Flight lead Colonel Ze'ev Raz 1,730, 5 hours local. Raz keys the radio unsaid. Double click, no words, and pulls his stick back. The 16 leaps upward, trading speed for altitude, the desert floor dropping away as the climb angle hits 30 degrees. Behind him, 7 aircraft follow in staggered pairs, maintaining formation spacing. The bombing run requires a 35-degree dive from 70 feet, release at 500 feet, with a 7-second fuse delay that arms the bombs 800 meters after release. Any lower and the blast will catch the delivery aircraft. Any higher and accuracy goes to hell. Raz has practiced this profile 47 times over a replica target in the Negev. His wingman, Captain Nachemi, has practiced it 52 times. Every pilot on this mission has dropped live Mark-80 4s on the mock-up until they could put them in a 30-meter circle from any entry heading. But they've never done it with SAMs tracking them, with fuel this low, with the knowledge that French civilians might still be inside. Raz altitude readout spins through 30 feet. His radar warning receiver screams, multiple emitters, SPAN and S-band, search and track modes, Iraqi air defense network waking up. The dome appears on his canopy bow, 6 miles ahead, exactly where the navigation fix said it would be. The late sun paints it gold. It looks small, peaceful, nothing like the scale model they've been bombing. Target visual, Raz transmits, first words spoken since crossing the border. His weapons panel shows both bombs armed, release mode set to double ripple, fuses set to 7-second delay. He rolls inverted, pulls the nose down, and lets the pipper settle on the dome, airspeed building, dive angle 37 degrees, close enough. The weapons computer is feeding solution data wind correction, ballistic path, release cue counting down. 4 seconds, 3, the radio erupts, Alpha Victor, 4, abort, friendlies on target. The call comes from the orbiting Boeing 707 Ilan bird, 150 miles west, monitoring Iraqi communications. The intelligence officer's voice is high, stressed. French nationals confirmed inside the control building. Repeat, civilians on site. Raz thumb hovers over the pickle button. 2 seconds to release. The dome fills his EUD. Rules of engagement are clear. No civilian casualties. The mission is a surgical strike, not a massacre. But the intelligence brief said the French were gone. And if he pulls off now, if he wastes fuel maneuvering for another run, they won't make it home. Fuel will run out somewhere over Jordan or the Saudi border, and 8 F-16s will crater into the desert or land at hostile airfield. 8 pilots dead or prisoners. The mission failed. 1 second. Raz releases anyway. Tuatha Air Defense Command, 1,736 hours local. The alarm klaxon blares as 8 high-speed contacts bloom on Fadhil's radar screen. Inbound from the southeast at 500 feet, 420 knots, 11 kilometers out and closing fast. If interrogation returns nothing hostile, his hands move automatically, trained responses taking over. He slaps the battery alert button and grabs the radio handset. All stations, hostile aircraft inbound Tuatha, bearing 140, multiple contacts, probable strike formation. The S-3 battery commander, Captain Majid Saleh, is 400 meters away in the missile launch control post, eating rice and lamb when the alert sounds. He drops the plate and runs. The tracking radars, near 120, 5 low blur requires a 2-minute startup sequence from cold status. He hits the power on switch and watches the gyros spool up, agonizingly slow. His crew piles into the trailer, systems operators sliding into seats, pulling on headsets, calling out status. Hydraulics pressurizing, radar war, MUP in progress, missile 1 and 2 rails slewing to stand by. Majid stares at the status board. 90 seconds to full tracking engagement. The hostile aircraft are 8 kilometers out. At 420 knots, they'll be overhead in 70 seconds. He won't make it. Raz the first run the bombs kick off the racks with a pneumatic thump, and Raz pulls hard, 5 geese compressing him into the seat as the 16 arcs away from the target. His wingman, Nachemi, releases 3 seconds later from a slightly offset angle, his bombs tracking parallel to Raz. Behind them, the second pair, MOs in Dubai all in, pickles hot, diving through the growing SAM threat. Ramon, in number 8, watches the first bombs fall. They look slow, lazy, tumbling slightly as they drop, the arming vanes spinning in the slipstream. 7 seconds after release, the fuses arm, and the bombs are hot, impact sensitive, ready to detonate. But the release altitude was wrong. Raz pulled off high, maybe spooked by the abort call, maybe adjusting for something Ramon can't see from Tay, then Charlie. The first bomb strikes the dome 20 feet right of center and punches through the concrete shell. The delayed fuse works perfectly and the bomb explodes deep inside the containment structure. The blast vents upward and out, blowing a plume of white dust and debris into the air. The dome cracks but doesn't collapse. Nachime's bombs hit 2 seconds later, bracketing the first impact. One penetrates the widening crack and detonates inside. The second skips off the curved surface, wrong angle, wrong impact velocity, and tumbles into the courtyard, where it explodes harmlessly in the dirt, cratering the ground but doing no structural damage. Raz radio discipline shatters. Second pair, walk your impacts north side of the dome. Do by adjust 2 degrees left. Ramon watches do by and Amos roll in. The dome is now partially obscured by smoke and dust, making visual aiming harder. SAM launch warnings are screaming in every cockpit's 3 battery is finally on lane, tracking radars locked, missiles slewing toward launch rails. Do by releases pulls off hard right. Amos follows, yanks his aircraft into a climb, in turn that breaks the radar lock but costs speed and fuel. Both bombs miss. One hits the administration building 50 meters east of the dome. The other strikes the parking lot. Half the strike package has expended its weapons. The dome is damaged but not destroyed, and the SAMs are coming online. Ramon number 8, the second flight, Ramon's flight lead, Captain Haggai Katz, keys the radio. Second flight single, file from the south, ill-mark the aim point, egress west on my call, this way isn't the plan. The plan was simultaneous 4 ship attacks from orthogonal headings, saturating defenses, maximizing probability of kill. But the first flight's geometry was wrong. The dome is still standing and now they are committed. Ramon's fuel reads to 100 pounds. The egress climb to altitude will take 600. The flight home, even at optimum cruise, will burn 400. He has 100 pounds of margin, maybe. Katz rolls in from 80 feet higher than briefed because the smoke and dust require better visibility. His dive angle is steeper, 42 degrees, and his airspeed climbs through 520 knots. The weapons computer struggles with the ballistic solution. Release Q flashing amber, then green. Katz pickles both bombs and pulls off at 800 feet, lower than anyone should go with a 7-second fuse delay. The bombs impact perfectly. Both penetrate the northern edge of the dome, already weakened by Raz's first hit, and detonate inside the reactor vessel chamber. The explosions are sequential, spaced 0, 4 seconds apart, and the combined overpressure collapses the entire northern hemisphere of the dome. Steel rebar snaps, concrete cascades inward. The reactor vessel unloaded, thankfully no fissile material inside Yedolts on its mounts as the support structure fails. Ramon sees it clearly from his row, Lynn Point. The dome is collapsing like a punctured egg. Smoke and dust pour from the rupture. Secondary explosions blossom as electrical transformers and fuel tanks ignite. The target is dying. But he still has 2 bombs and orders are to make sure. He rolls inverted, pulls the nose down, and immediately realizes the geometry is wrong. Katz's egress path crosses his dive line. Standard deconfliction calls for 5-second spacing, but Katz pulled off low and is now climbing directly through Ramon's weapons release window. If Ramon releases now, there's a non-zero chance his bombs will hit Katz's aircraft on the way down. Fratricide risk, abort criterion. Ramon pulls off without releasing, banks hard left, burning fuel and time. His roar is screaming. A 3 tracking radar has him locked, missile launch imminent. He extends west, then reverses, setting up for a second run from a different axis. His fuel reads 850 pounds. The math no longer works. He rolls in anyway. 2 the Air Defense Command 1 hour's local Majid finally has a firing solution. The SNR 125 radar is locked on a single target aircraft number 7, Captain Relic, pulling off his bombing run and climbing westbound. The missile rails slew smoothly, tracking the target's path. Majid's finger rests on the launch consent switch. Range 4 kilometers, altitude 200 meters and climbing. Target speed 4 knots, solution solid. Launch authority granted, Majid says, and flips the switch. Missile 1 ignites, the booster motor roars, and the SAM lifts off the rail in a column of white smoke, arcing upward toward the climbing 16. The semi-active radar homing seeker tracks the reflected energy from the SNR 125's illumination beam. Time to intercept, 12 seconds. Relicts or screams missile launch. He punches chaff and brakes hard right, descending, trading altitude for speed. This is 3's guidance logic struggle star. It is maneuvering, radar reflection weakening in the chaff cloud. The missile corrects, but it's a physics problem now. The 16 is accelerating away, diving, while the missile is climbing, burning fuel, losing energy. At 6 seconds to intercept, the missile runs out of steering authority. It can't turn hard enough to track the diving target. Proximity fuse arms anyway it's close enough, but the warhead detonates 80 meters behind and below Relic's aircraft. Shrapnel peppers the underside of his right wing, punching fist, sized holes in the aluminum skin. Hydraulic fluid streams into the slipstream. His flight control panel lights up amber. Number 7 hit, hydraulics degraded, Relic transmits, voice flat. Continuing egress. Majid's second missile is already on the rail. He slews the radar to track aircraft number 8 Ramon, diving toward the collapsing dome at 540 knots. Ramon, the final run, the Pipper settles on the center of the wreckage. The dome is gone, just a smoking crater now, rebar and concrete rubble, fires burning in 3 locations. Ramon's weapons computer flashes read release altitude too low, impact velocity too high, fuse delay insufficient for safe separation. He's at 2 feet in a 45-degree dive. If he releases now and the bombs detonate on schedule, the blast will catch his aircraft. But if he doesn't release, he's flown 1 miles and burned 0 pounds of fuel for nothing. His thumb hits the pickle button. Both bombs fall free. The release feels wrong, air speed too high, angle too steep, but the ballistic path is locked in now. Ramon pulls back on the stick, 7 geese, vision tunneling gray at the edges, 16 groaning as the airframe bends. His altimeter spins through 600 feet. The bombs fall below him, arming vanes spinning. Behind him, the SAM launches. He doesn't see Eye's attention is locked on airspeed and altitude. Yet his roar shrieks missile tracking. This 3 is guiding on him, closing at Mach 3, proximity fuse armed. Ramon punches chaff and brakes left, but he's low and slow, energy depleted from the dive recovery. The missile tracks perfectly, reflected radar energy bright and clear. 5 seconds to impact, 4. Ramon's bombs hit the reactor rubble at 540 knots. The first bomb penetrates 6 meters into the debris pile before the fuse detonates it. The explosion is subterranean, a hammer blow that lifts the entire rubble field upward in a fountaining column of concrete and dust. The second bomb impacts 0. 3 seconds later, 8 meters north, and detonates at the same depth. The combined overpressure creates a shockwave that radiates outward at 80 meters per second, faster than the SAM closing on Ramon's aircraft. The shockwave hits the missile at 3 seconds to intercept. The S-3 is designed to handle target evasion, chaff jamming, but not a kilodance, gale pressure wave arriving from an orthogonal axis. The missile's guidance fins stall in the turbulence. Aerodynamic control surfaces lose authority, and the weapon tumbles, gyros failing, seeker head losing lock. It impacts the ground 200 meters from the reactor site and explodes harmlessly. Ramon doesn't see that either. He's climbing wings level, heading 270 degrees, fuel reading 400 pounds. The egress route home is 550 nautical miles. His fuel will last 480. He'll have to glide the last 70. Control building 1,730, 9 hours local, the first explosion. Cat's bombs collapsing the dome throws Philippe Delacroix against the observation window. Glass cracks but doesn't shatter. The lights go out. Emergency lighting flickers on, battery, powered, casting red shadows. The second explosion. Ramon's bombs in the rubble shakes the building's foundation. Ceiling tiles fall. A section of ductwork tears loose and crashes onto the control console. Philip grabs his colleague Antoine and pulls him toward the stairwell. Out now, they descend in darkness, stumbling over debris. The stairwell reeks of burning insulation and concrete dust. The third-floor landing is blocked by a collapsed beam. They backtrack, find a secondary exit, and emerge into the courtyard 90 seconds after the first bomb hit. The reactor dome no longer exists. Where it stood is a crater 40 meters across, fires burning at the edges, smoke rising in a black column visible for miles. The containment structure is gone, the reactor vessel is buried under rubble, the cooling system piping is shredded. The control building they just exited is listing, its southern wall cracked floor to ceiling. Philip looks up. Contrails streak westward, high altitude, 8 white lines against the darkening sky. The 16s have climbed out, running for home, already 30 miles away and accelerating. He sits on the ground and starts laughing, a high, breathless sound. They are alive. The Israelis bombed around them, threading munitions through a complex full of people, and they are alive. Antoine is pale, shaking. We need to call Paris. Philip nods. Tell them the Israelis just saved us from working at a target. Egress 1740. 5 hours. Local Relix 16 is bleeding hydraulic fluid from 12 punctures in the right wing and aft fuselage. His primary flight control system is degraded to backup mod manual reversion, meaning his control inputs route through a secondary hydromechanical system with half the authority and twice the lag. He's flying a crippled jet home with 1 pounds of fuel, and the math is grim. Raz in the lead orders the formation to slow. Cruise profile at 140 knots at 10 feet optimum range airspeed. It'll take 90 minutes to reach Israeli airspace. Relic's hydraulic leak is slow but steady. He's losing fluid at 2 pounds per minute. At that rate, hell run dry in 18 minutes and the flight controls will freeze. Number 7, can you maintain formation? Raz asks. Affirm, hydraulics degrading but controllable. Relic's voice is steady, professional. The tremor underneath is barely audible. Ramon in number 8 watches his fuel totalizer. He's at 1 pounds burning on pounds per minute in cruise. He has 104 minutes of fuel. The flight home is 110 minutes. He's 6 minutes short, and there's nothing to It's already at minimum cruise power, optimum altitude, cleanest configuration. He'll run dry 40 miles from Israeli airspace and glide the rest, unless he diverts. Jordan is 80 miles north. Saudi Arabia is 100 miles south. Both are neutral, both have airfields, both would intern him and his aircraft. The 16's design is classified. Landing in a foreign country means handing advanced American technology to whoever wants it. And Israel can't afford that, so hell glide, and if he comes up short, hell eject over the desert and hope the rescue team finds him before the Iraqis do. The formation climbs in silence, 8 contrails arrowing west, the sun setting ahead of them, painting the sky orange and purple. Below, the Iraqi desert scrolls past, featureless and vast, no SAMs launch, no interceptors scramble. The Iraqi Air Force is still reacting, still spinning up, still trying to understand how 8 aircraft penetrated their airspace undetected and destroyed a strategic target in under 4 minutes. At 1,802 hours, Relic's hydraulic system fails. The flight controls freeze in neutral, and his 16 becomes a ballistic object, stable but uncontrollable. He can't turn, can't climb, can't descend except by throttle adjustments. Lead 7, I've lost hydraulics, flight controls frozen, am a glider with an engine. Raz processes this. Relic is 200 miles from home, flying straight and level at 41 feet. If he maintains altitude and speed, he'll cross into Israeli airspace in 40 minutes. If anything goes wrong, if he needs to maneuver, if interceptors appear, if the engine quitch is done, copy 7, hold your heading, we'll escort you home. Nachimi number 2 slides into formation beside Relic, close enough to see the hydraulic fluid streaming from the wing punctures, freezing into crystals in the thin air. It looks like a contrail, almost pretty. Nachimi stays there, matching speed and altitude, a silent promise, you're not flying home alone. At 1,819 hours, Ramon's fuel reads 200 pounds. The totalizer is blinking amber. He calculates 18 pounds per minute at this power setting, which gives him 11 minutes. Israeli airspace is 24 minutes ahead. He keys the radio, lead 8, fuel state critical, 13 minutes to flame out. Raz has no magic solution. There's no tanker, no divert field, no reserve. Copy 8, glide profile when you flame out. Well vector rescue. Ramon acknowledges and starts planning the glide. From 41 feet, and 16 glides approximately 120 nautical miles in still air, following a 15:1 glide ratio. That puts his touchdown point 40 miles inside Jordan. Not good, but survivable. At 1,827 hours, his engine flames out. The Pratt Whitney turbine spools down, compressor blades windmilling in the slipstream, and the cockpit goes quiet. No roar, no vibration, just wind noise and the hum of the emergency generator powering his instruments. Ramon trims the aircraft for best glide, 120 knots, nose slightly down, and watches the altimeter unwind. 40 feet, 38 the desert below is dark now, twilight fading to night, scattered lights marking villages and roads. He picks a heading toward the Israeli border and flies the glide path with precision, no wasted energy, no unnecessary maneuvering. At 15 feet, he crosses into Israeli airspace. At 80 feet, Raz vectors him toward Ramon Air Base. At 30 feet, the tower clears him for a stray, tin visual approach, runway lights blazing, emergency vehicles staging on the taxiway. Ramon lands dead, stick at 1,844 hours, touching down 200 feet down the runway, aerodynamic braking only, no engine, no hydraulics, coasting to a stop 300 feet from the far end. The canopy is hot to the touch when he pops it. His hands are shaking. Relic lands 4 minutes later, flight controls still frozen, managing the approach entirely with throttle adjustments, power for descent, idle for flare, and sets the aircraft down hard but intact. The landing gear holds, the nose wheel stays straight. He rolls out, and only then does he realize he's been holding his breath. 7 aircraft recover at Ramon. The 8th Nachu midverts to Hatzerum with a cracked windscreen from debris impact. Nothing serious, but the safety officer grounds him until maintenance inspects the airframe. All 8 pilots alive, all 8 aircraft recoverable, the target destroyed. Aftermath June 8, the strike generates international outrage. The UN Security Council condemns Israel unanimously. France recalls its ambassador. Iraq files a formal complaint. The United States publicly criticizes the attack while privately signaling tacit approval. Bitter, the reactor destroyed now, then a nuclear-armed Iraq later. The French technicians, Philippe Delacroix and Antoine Moreau, give interviews describing the precision of the attack, the surgical application of force, the lack of collateral damage. They could have leveled the entire complex, Delacroix tells Le Monde. Instead, they destroyed only the reactor, professionals. Iraq rebuilds the damaged structures but never resurrects the nuclear program. The reactor vessel is too contaminated, the international suppliers too spooked, the message too clear. Osirak remains a ruin, a monument to the limits of ambition. Israeli intelligence later confirms that enriched uranium fuel rods were scheduled for delivery on June 15, 8 days after the strike. If the mission had been delayed a week, the reactor would have been hot, and bombing it would have spread radioactive contamination across Baghdad, killing thousands. The window was real, and it closed behind them. Captain Ilan Ramon, the pilot who glided home on fumes, rises through the ranks, eventually becoming a colonel and then an astronaut. In 2003, he flies aboard the space shuttle Columbia as Israel's first man in space. He carries a small Torah scroll rescued from the Holocaust and a mezuzah from the Western Wall. On February 1, during re-entry, Columbia breaks apart over Texas. Ramon and his 6 crewmates are killed instantly. His son tells reporters that Ramon never spoke about the Osirak mission, even decades later. Operational security, respect for the lives at risk, the weight of decisions made at 41.0 feet with fuel running dry. Some stories stay locked inside. Ze'ev Raz, the flight leader, retires as a brigadier general. He teaches at the Israeli Air Force Flight Academy, training the next generation. When students ask about Osirak, he describes the geometry, the fuel constraints, the SAM envelopes, the physics of 7-second fuse delays. He does not describe what it felt like to release bombs with civilians on site, to trust that the intelligence was wrong, to bet 8 lives and a national mission on a judgment call made in 2 seconds. Relic, the pilot who flew home with frozen controls, leaves the Air Force in 1985 and becomes a commercial airline captain. He tells friends that after landing a crippled 16 in the desert twilight, flying a 740, 7 to Paris feels almost relaxing. The S-3 battery commander, Captain Majid Saleh, is quietly reassigned after the strike. His performance was adequate, got the system online, achieved lock, launched missiles, but the result was unambiguous failure. The reactor was destroyed on his watch. Iraq's air defense network, built with Soviet equipment and doctrine, had been bypassed by 8 aircraft and defeated in 4 minutes. Majid requests a transfer to an administrative post and spends the rest of his career managing supply depots, never firing another missile. Lieutenant Fadhil al-Khazraji, the radar operator who first detected the inbound strike, writes a detailed after-action report analyzing the failure. His conclusions are prescient. The Israelis exploited terrain masking, radar horizon geometry, and the startup delay of stand-by SAM systems. His recommendations can use hot status for critical site defenses, redundant low-altitude radar coverage, faster crew response protocols filed and ignored. 3 years later, during an Israeli strike on PLO headquarters in Tunisia, Iraqi advisors watched the same playbook unfold: low-altitude ingress, terrain masking, precision weapons, surgical destruction. Fadhil's report is quietly retrieved from the archives and circulated among air defense planners, but by then, it's too late. The strike validates a principle that reshapes military aviation. Long-range precision attack can achieve strategic objectives that previously required invasion or prolonged bombardment. The F-16, designed as a lightweight dogfighter, proves itself as a strike platform capable of carrying heavy ordnance across vast distances and delivering it with surgical accuracy. The mission profile: low-altitude penetration, rapid climb, dive, bombing, defensive egress becomes a template studied at air warfare colleges worldwide. The reactor dome is never rebuilt. Satellite imagery from 1985 shows the crater filled with rubble, weeds growing in the cracks. By 1991, during the Gulf War, American aircraft overfly the site and photograph it for battle damage assessment training. The wreckage is still there, untouched, a perfect example of what 0 pounds of high explosive can do to reinforced concrete when delivered by skilled pilots with no margin for error. Reflections: the mission succeeded because of constraints, not despite them. The fuel limitation forced precise navigation and minimal maneuvering. The fuse delay required exact release altitudes. The row demanding 0 civilian casualties sharpened the target selection and weapon employment. The SAM threat compressed the timeline, eliminating hesitation. Every constraint tightened the problem space until only one solution remained: execute perfectly or fail completely. 8 pilots flew into Iraqi airspace knowing they might not return. They carried enough fuel for the mission profile with no reserves, enough weapons for one pass with no second chances. They threaded between SAM envelopes, deconflicted their attacks in seconds, adjusted for real-time changes, and put bombs on target while surface-to-air missiles guided toward them. One aircraft came home on a glide, another flew with frozen controls, all 8 landed. The reactor was destroyed because the geometry worked, because the fuses armed at the right altitude, because the bombs penetrated before detonating, because the pilots pulled off low and fast and trusted their training, and because intelligence was wrong about the French civilians but the pilots released anyway, betting that their precision was good enough to strike the dome without collapsing the control building. It was, sometimes the constraints decide the battle, sometimes the people do. At Osirak, both were true. What moment surprised you most? Did the constraints decide the outcome or the split? Second decisions made by pilots with no fuel margin and SAMs in the air. Drop your thoughts below. If you want more breakdowns of missions where geometry, physics, and human judgment collided at 500 knots, hit subscribe and tell me which operation to cover next. Your comments shape the next mission brief. Thanks for flying along.